Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer and welcome to Best Kept Plans. Today's video is going to be a book haul. I recently went to the bookstore, I picked up far too many books and I wanted to share them with you all here on YouTube to get some opinions. I often go into purchasing books with not a lot of information. I like to be surprised, but I thought it would be fun to share with you all what I purchased and see if any of you have read these books and what your spoiler-free thoughts are. If you're interested in seeing that, please stick around. So as I said in the introduction, I recently went to the bookstore and I purchased far too many books. So this bag here is filled with new books that I purchased. I went a little overboard, but I couldn't help it. And I want to share with you all what I got. I don't know much when it comes to a lot of these books. Some of them I don't know anything. And I kind of like that. I like doing that. But I thought it would be fun to share what I purchased, to see if any of you have read any of these books, to get some opinions from you all, of course, spoiler free. Also, I want to apologize if the lighting changes throughout this video. So I have some really wonderful sunlight beaming in right now. There are definitely shadows on my face from my blinds, but this is the only time I had to film this video. I'm using natural light like I have been for these videos where I've been talking about books and showing my face. So if shadows emerge or the light changes, I apologize, but I'm working with what I got. So let's get into it. The first book that I purchased is a classic. I am currently reading Emma by Jane Austen. If you saw my video where I share what I read in March 2022, you'll know that the last book that I read was Emma by Jane Austen. I actually filmed that video yesterday, so it's still March as I'm filming this, even though it won't be posting until April. And I'm enjoying Emma. I talked a lot in that video about how it's taking me a while to get through it. I think I just need to adjust to that language and but yeah, I'm enjoying it. And so when I went to the bookstore, I wanted to pick up another classic, and I ended up picking up Persuasion by Jane Austen. So I've read Pride and Prejudice before. I really love that book. I'm enjoying Emma, so I figured another Jane Austen was a safe way to go. This one's also a lot shorter than Emma, so I think it'll be a lot easier for me to get through. I don't think I'll read it right away. I think I'll take some time, but I'm excited to have picked this up. I don't know what it's about. I've never read the back cover. I've never read a synopsis of it. So yeah, going into this one blind. Next, I picked up a book by Sophie Kinsella called I Owe You One. So back when I used to read a lot, probably more so in early college, I got really into Sophie Kinsella. I read a bunch of her Shopaholic series books. Definitely haven't read the last few because I think a few more have come out. But I read a few of those. I read a bunch of her standalone books and I really enjoyed them. And so when I was at the bookstore, her name just kind of like popped into my head and I was like, oh yeah, I should look and see if she has anything. So I ended up picking this book up. I did not read the back. I have no idea what it's about. But I've really enjoyed all of the books of hers that I have read. So I was really curious to pick a new one up and try her out again to see if I still enjoy her. Also, when I picked it up, I was kind of thinking in my head, is she considered romance? She's not in the romance section. Like, she wasn't in the romance section in the bookstore. And I've never thought of her as a romance writer, but now that I'm like looking back, I'm wondering if some people would consider her romance. And if so, then the statement I made in my video where I talked about the books I read in February 2022 and I mentioned how I had never really read romance before is false. But definitely let me know. Let me know if you think she would be considered romance or not. Next, we have a book that I know nothing about. I did look it up on Goodreads when I was at the bookstore. It had a really good rating, which is why I ended up picking it up. and that is Girl in Pieces. So yeah, I don't know what this is about. The cover is really interesting. Um, I'm curious. It says that it's a bestseller. Again, the Goodreads rating was really, really high, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. So definitely interested to read this one, to check this one out. I didn't read the back cover, so no idea what it's about. Next, we have a book that I saw at the bookstore. It was on one of the end caps. The cover kind of caught my eye, which is interesting because it's not like bright. It doesn't have like an interesting picture or pattern per se, but it just caught my eye. And it is a National Book Award finalist. I did end up reading the back cover just because I was curious, and that is Station 11. So this seems to be about a pandemic, which some people might find it kind of odd that I want to read a book about a pandemic, but I think that I want to say that it's about like time before and time after, or at least that's the vibe I got when I read the back cover. I didn't look it up on Goodreads, surprisingly enough, so not sure what readers' opinions are on this one. If you have read this, definitely let me know your thoughts because I'm really curious. I don't know that it's something that I'll read soon. Like maybe I might let this one sit for a little bit, but I am definitely curious about it. That light is now like beaming in on me. Maybe I should let me see if I could do something with my blinds. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've changed my angle a little bit. I kind of closed the blinds a little bit. It's darker. I'm definitely gonna have like streaks across my face and stuff, but at least I'm not being blinded by the light right now. So next up, in February, I think it was February. In February, I read my first Colleen Hoover. I read Verity. I enjoyed it. The end totally creeped me out and left me a little unsettled. I feel like a lot of people probably feel that way reading that book, but I certainly enjoyed it and it made me want to read more Colleen Hoover. She's incredibly popular on BookTube and Instagram, and a bunch of her books get mentioned kind of all of the time. And one of them is Ugly Love. I don't know what this is about. I did not read the back. Again, super popular online. And so I decided to pick it up and see what I think of it. A couple of my friends have read Colleen Hoover before, several Colleen Hoover books, and one of my friends actually had just read Verity, which prompted me to read it. So I want to ask her if she's read Ugly Love and what her thoughts were, but this was definitely one that I saw popping up all over the place. Next, we have a book that was recommended to me. So if you follow me on Instagram, I post a lot in my stories about the books that I'm reading. And I did post that I wanted to create an Instagram challenge where from now until the end of 2022, I read one book a month that is recommended to me by someone on Instagram. And one of the lovely ladies that I follow, Delilah, ended up recommending this book. It is a young adult romance, which I have not read before. I've never read any young adult romance, so I'm excited to explore that. And that is A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow. How adorable is that book cover? Like, it's so cute. I love tea. I'm also Cuban. So I was really excited when Delilah recommended this. I'm assuming the main character is Cuban. That makes me really happy to have a Cuban main character. I'm excited to read this. I don't think I will be reading it until the summertime. I've kind of been filling out a spread in my reading journal as I'm getting recommendations, and I think hers landed in like July or August, something like that. So I won't be reading it until the summertime, but I'm very, very excited for this one. Next, we have another classic. This was a super random purchase. I was just like perusing the aisles, and I saw this one, and the bright yellow cover caught my eye. And when I saw what it actually was, I was like, I've never read that, and that would probably be kind of fun to read. And that is The Wizard of Oz, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. I've obviously seen the movie. I have never read the book. I'm assuming it's going to be a pretty easy read to get through. I'm assuming, and I could be very wrongly assuming, that it's geared towards children. There's certainly pictures throughout. And yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested to see how it differs from the movie and what I think about it. Has anybody read this one? I'm curious. Next, we have another young adults book. This is one that I had seen at the bookstore several times. I had definitely looked it up on Goodreads. It had a really great review on Goodreads, but I just hadn't purchased it. And then I was chatting with one of my colleagues about books, and we seem to have somewhat similar taste. We both enjoy romance. Like, I've realized that I like romance and modern contemporary romance novels. And so, you know, we've both enjoyed, like, we both really liked The Hating Game, and she enjoyed The Soulmate Equation, and there's a couple others that our opinions are pretty similar on, and she mentioned this one to me, and so that kind of gave me the nudge to pick it up, and it's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. So I do know that this is a trilogy. She did tell me that, and I did see the other two books when I picked this one up, and I decided to not pick the other two up. I just picked up the first one. I did that in case I end up really not enjoying it and don't want to read the next two. But again, it did have a really good score on Goodreads, so I'm very optimistic about it. I'm assuming it's more on the mystery thriller kind of side of things, and I read a couple of those in I would say more like light mysteries in February. I read two more legit like mystery thrillers in March, and I really liked those, so I'm excited to read this. Next, we have another recommendation from somebody that I follow on Instagram, and for the life of me, I cannot remember who, and I'm really bummed about that, and I forgot to bring my reading journal over, but I will make sure that I put who recommended each book that was recommended in the description down below. I am curious about this one. I am very curious about this one. I like fiction. I have never been intrigued by nonfiction. And it's certainly something where I want to try to get out of my comfort zone and get maybe try out nonfiction again. I've tried it in the past, usually with more memoir style books, like one of Chelsea Handler's books. I think I even tried, was it Drew Barrymore's? I think it was Drew Barrymore's. And I just couldn't get through them. And more recently at work, a bunch of us have started a book club, and I didn't realize it was going to be more so geared towards like nonfiction books that could help us in being better healthcare providers or leaders in our field. And so we're reading Dare to Lead, I think it's called. It's a Brené Brown book, and I've been 25 pages into it for like the last month. So I just can't get motivated when it comes to nonfiction. And this is a nonfiction book. It is a memoir style book, and that is Will by Will Smith. So this was recommended. I am definitely going to give it a try. The cover is stunning. Like, that is such a beautiful cover to a book. I genuinely, I love that. I'm curious. It is also incredibly long, or at least I feel like it is. It's a big book. And so even though it's only I think it's a little under 400 pages. It's a little over 400 pages. It's a big book. So I want to be optimistic about it. I'm really hoping that I enjoy it, that I can get through the whole thing, that I can enjoy it. I am. But that is one of the ones that was recommended. Next, we have another one that was recommended. This was recommended by Karen, and again, I'll put her information down below. She, I think, had seen that I was reading a couple mystery thrillers, and so she recommended The Silent Patient. I've definitely heard about this one. I think it's really popular. It's been around for a little bit, and so I'm curious. I'm definitely really interested to read it. I don't know what it's about. I didn't read a synopsis. I didn't read the back cover. Let me guess. Because I know what I instantly thought of when I saw the title. The second I saw the title, what I thought of was a person who is intubated and has the inability to verbally express themselves, potentially the inability to make those around her realize that her mental faculties are intact. So like she can't speak because she's intubated. Maybe she can't even like nod or shake her head or like move her extremities to like let people know that he or she has intact faculties mentally, and what that is doing to her or what is done to her. That is what comes to mind when I see this. I could be 100% wrong. I hope I'm right, because that seems like a really interesting read to me, especially as someone who works in healthcare. I'm a nurse practitioner. I was, a nurse for several years. I worked in an ICU setting, and so I very often was taking care of patients who were unable to verbally express themselves, some of which were able to communicate with yes/no questions, were able to write, and others that weren't. So, I'm very curious about this one. Next, we have another romance. So this is one that I've definitely seen a couple of times mentioned on BookTube, on Instagram. It is another trilogy, not thriller. It's not a thriller. It's another trilogy, and it is Get a Life, Chloe Brown. So I don't know what it's about. Like, I didn't read the back cover, but I do know that the trilogy, each book in the trilogy is written about or focused on a different sibling. So the first one is focused on Chloe Brown, but then the second book is focused on someone else, and the third one is focused on the third sibling. I think that's really interesting. I think that's a really cool concept, and I'm definitely curious to read them. I think even if I don't absolutely love the first one, I'll definitely read the other two because they're different. It is a trilogy, but they're about different characters. So really curious to give this a read. And then the last two books that I am going to share are both, I think they're both fantasy. And I have not read fantasy in a really, really long time. I, like many people, I think around my age, got into fantasy by reading the Harry Potter books. I started reading those in elementary school when they started coming out. I read them all the way through the summer before my freshman year of college, which is when the last one came out. I absolutely loved the Harry Potter books. I do want to say that my love for Harry Potter is very separate from my feelings about J.K. Rowling. I don't really have any positive things to say about that individual. But that was kind of my introduction into fantasy. And I certainly read some other fantasy when I was kind of like in high school, in college. I guess more specifically like dystopian fantasy. Like I liked The Hunger Games and I read The Hunger Games. Those had been recommended to me by one of my friends when I was in college and I really enjoyed them. I was also recommended, no, that's a lie, I wasn't recommended, but I ended up reading the Divergent series and I do remember enjoying them, not as much as like The Hunger Games. So I've definitely read other fantasy before. I've also read Game of Thrones. I read only the first Game of Thrones book. I think you would consider that fantasy. I want to read more Game of Thrones. I watched the series. I was late to it. I didn't watch it until the 8th season was about to start airing, but I really enjoyed it. And I really liked the first book. It's just they're so long, and I do get scared about long books. Like I worry when I start a long book. So that's kind of prevented me from diving deeper. But the first one is one that I've definitely seen a lot of places. And I want to say that I did watch a video recently on BookTube where someone mentioned that this is going to be a series. I don't know if that's true or not, but it is the Atlas 6. I do not know what this is about. I'm very curious about it. I hope that I like it. Only reading it will tell, but I did read the back because it's very short, and it says secrets, betrayal, seduction, power, welcome to the Alexandrian Society. That's intriguing. Like, I want to pick this up. I want to read this. I want to see what I think about it. So this might be one of the ones that I grab quicker in this pile of books. I do have a few more that I'm going to read before I attempt any of the ones that that I picked up in this haul, but I definitely feel like I'm going to want to grab this pretty quickly. Next we have, and last we have, another one. I'm not going to lie. I picked this up. It was kind of like on a table in the front of the bookstore. So I actually don't know. I don't know if it's fantasy. I think it is though. And I also want to say that I feel like I've definitely seen it a bunch on like BookTube and Instagram. But I also think that I have heard that people, I almost said that patience. I want to say that I think I've heard that people have mixed feelings about this one. Like, some people really like it, some people don't like it at all. And that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And yeah, I'm curious. I don't know what this is about at all. I did not read the back. I've never read a synopsis of it. I have no idea what this is about. But it was mentioned a bunch. And so definitely let me know if you've read it. Definitely let me know if it was a like for you or a dislike, because I'm really, really curious. And that is it. That is my haul. That is my haul of books that I purchased my last trip to the bookstore. I am not planning on going back to the bookstore for a while. This pile will last me a couple of months. And again, I have a few other books that I've already purchased that I want to read prior to getting to these. So I'm not intending on another book haul for a while, like maybe not until May or June. Definitely curious as to everyone's thoughts. Let me know what your feelings are about these books if you've read any of them. I certainly want spoiler free, and to be totally honest, if you could keep like the premise as simple as possible or as minimally detailed as possible, I'd probably like that too. Again, like I said, I do tend to like to go into books not knowing much and being surprised. But definitely let me know if you've read any of them and if you liked them or you disliked them. If it's a favorite book, if it's a book that you absolutely hate, let me know. I'm definitely curious about that. Also, if you have any books that you want to recommend to me, please don't hesitate to put them down below. I'm always looking for recommendations, and I'm kind of willing to read anything. I get a little nervous thinking about starting a series that's really long. Like, I do have two in here that are the first books in trilogies, and trilogies don't give me anxiety. But I think if it was a series where it's like, oh, there's 10 books, I would be kind of worried or nervous or scared to start something like that. So certainly let me know if you have any recommendations for me. As always, everyone, please be safe. Bye-bye.